to play blues piano, but no matter how hard you try, your playing sounds inauthentic? Well, I remember when I was first learning blues piano, and I learned a lot of really cool licks in my right hand, but my playing still sounded uninspired and amateur. Until one day I discovered that the root of my problem had nothing to do with my right hand and learning more licks, and it had everything to do with my left hand accompaniment. So in today's lesson, I'm going to show you how you can fix this very common problem for blues piano players so that hopefully you can unlock a more professional sound in your playing. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, when you're first learning the blues, there's a very good chance that you were taught the blues shuffle, and it sounds like this. And a blues shuffle is not a bad place to start when you're learning the blues, but after a while, it just kind of sounds very amateur, and it does not have that kind of chill, lazy blues sound that a professional would play. So you might try a different left hand, like a 4 on the floor. Okay? But again, this is very amateur sounding. I'm just playing an ordinary C7 chord on each beat. So then you might think, okay, well, what if I jump up to the chord? What if I play like this? Okay, and once again, it does not have a very professional sound. And finally, you might be thinking, okay, well, what if I do a shuffle, but I jump up to the chord? So what if I play it like this? And once again, it does have a very inauthentic amateur sound. So what is the solution? Well, I'm going to tell you that next, but before we do this, if you're enjoying the video, please hit the like button, and if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more videos just like this. The solution is not your right hand licks, meaning I can play licks all day, right, over a very basic left hand like this, and it's still gonna sound super basic. And so the fix to this problem is actually playing an entirely different left hand. Check out my new left hand, and I'm gonna play some very simple licks in my right hand, and hear how cool it sounds. Okay? I think that sounds so much better, even though I was doing way less in my right hand, because it's in my left hand that we get that nice, smooth kind of blues foundation that we can build the right hand licks on. So if you want to fix your blues playing, you gotta focus on your left hand, and then you can start adding the blues licks in your right hand. So that's what we're gonna do next, and I'm gonna show you a very simple 3-step process to fixing your left hand, and it doesn't matter your playing level. I'm gonna show you a beginner, intermediate, and advanced version, so stay tuned for that. All right, are you ready for this? Step number 1 is to stop playing these big 7th chords that you're typically taught when you first learn the blues. Now, it is important to learn your 7th chords, but if you're using this as your left hand accompaniment, okay, it does sound super amateur. And so what a professional would do is they would actually remove one note from these chords and play a simple 3-note chord, which is called a chord shell. Okay, so here's how we do it. We take our 7th chord, this is like a C7, and we remove the 5th from the chord, the G, and now we have kind of a crunchier sounding chord because we get this little tritone in there, and it gives it a really authentic blues sound, okay? Now you're gonna do this on all 3 of your blues chords, but on your F, it's very important to invert your chord. So here's what I mean. If you take your F7, we're gonna take the C out, but what you're gonna wanna do is grab the low F here, and then on these 2 notes, the A and the E flat, you're gonna put the E flat on the bottom, okay? And the reason that we do this is because when you're going from the C chord to the F chord, if I go up to this chord shape, it does not sound as good as if I went from C here to F there, okay? This is called voice leading, and it's basically when the notes from the chord don't have to move as far when you're changing chords. Do you see this? C7 to F7? That sounds way better than going C7 to F7 up here. See how close they are? So you really want to keep this in mind as you're changing chords. All right, on the third chord, the G7, we're going to take the D out, the fifth of this chord, and then we're going to invert these notes down here so that these notes are closer to the notes from the previous chord. So check it out. Let's go on the low G. We're going to grab these two notes. By the way, the third and seventh of chords are called the guide tones. They're very important notes to learn, okay? So let's play all three chords again. C7, F7, and G7. Now you might be thinking, Johnny, this sounds pretty good. I like these chords, but it still sounds kind of amateur. And this brings us to step 2, which is where to put your chords. And this is where I see a lot of students make a very amateur sounding mistake. What they'll do is they'll take a chord like C7 and they play it like this. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm taking the chord and I'm putting it on the upbeat. And the upbeat is basically the beat in between the other beats. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, and this has a super amateur sound. A pro blues player would actually take this chord and they put it on the downbeat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. In other words, I'm flipping it. I'm taking the chord and putting it on the downbeat, and then I'm putting the root on the upbeat. And this can be very counterintuitive for many beginner blues players because we're so often taught go root to chord. So it can seem very natural to putting the root on the downbeat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But this is definitely not the best way to play it if you want a more professional sound. So in step number 2, what you're going to do is you're going to take each of your chords, and remember we're using the 3rd and the 7th of the chord, and we're going to place them on the downbeats. So let's play them together. On the C7 we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then on the F7, remember we grabbed the root down here and the chords up here. Let's put the chords on the downbeats. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then on the G7, recall the roots down here. We're going to put the chords on the downbeats. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, you've reached the most important step because once you've placed your chords on the downbeats, you're going to want to place your root note on the upbeats. And remember that the upbeat is the and. So we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, okay? It's gonna feel kind of weird the first time, but if you practice this a bunch, it's gonna start to feel more natural. Okay, so let's start on the C7 chord, and instead of going 1 and 2 and 3, we're gonna do it like this. We're gonna go and 1. You see that? So it's like a little pickup note. We're actually starting the C before the downbeat of the measure. Okay, let's try this together. 3 and 4 and 1, and then we continue. And 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. Does that make sense? So we're always playing the root note on the and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. And then if you're switching to an F7 chord, what you're going to do is before you get to the downbeat of the next measure, we're going to grab the F on the and of 4. That's going to be down here. So check this out. And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2. You see that? And so this is part of what gives us left-hand accompaniment, that really smooth sound, is because you transition to each of your next chords a little bit early. And so this will help give it a smooth sound, so when you land on that F7 chord, okay, it just lands a little bit better by going to that root a little bit early, okay? And you're gonna do this on the G7 chord as well. So when you're switching to like a G7 chord, perhaps you're on your C7 chord, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2. You see how I went to the G7 chord a little bit early? So you're gonna wanna practice this. And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Now, if this left-hand jump is a little bit too hard for you, don't worry. I'm going to teach you a beginner approach to this left hand. And also, if this left hand is too easy for you and you want to step it up, I'm also going to teach you an advanced left hand. All right, next, I'm going to show you how to take this left-hand accompaniment approach and how to apply this to a beginner, intermediate, and advanced left-hand accompaniment. But before we do this, if you want to do a deep dive on different blues left-hand patterns, you want to learn a variety of bass lines, you know, walking bass lines for the blues, okay, or kind of a blues stride, or the burlesque blues. You can learn a ton of left-hand blues bass lines in our Rockin' Blues Bass Lines course. I'll put a link to that below. All right, beginners, I'm going to show you how you can play a super simple left-hand blues bass line using the approach that I just explained, but it's much easier than what I taught you, and it still sounds really good. I'm going to play a little bit of it for you so you can hear what it sounds like, and then I'll break it down. Right. So basically what I'm doing is I'm taking each of my chords, C7, F7, and G7, and I'm simply playing them in root position, okay? And again, it does sound better to invert your chords, but the nice thing is that if you play them in root position, you don't have to jump as far on chords like your F chord, okay? So on the C chord, we have and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and then going to F, we have and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and then on the G, you can play it up here, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. All right, if you are an intermediate student, guess what? You already learned your left-hand bass line because it's the one that I taught you. And 2, and 3, and 4, 2, 3, 4, okay? Now I do want to mention that there are two ways that you can play this particular left hand. One way is that you can hold the root when you go up to the chord. You see what I'm doing? This becomes a little bit harder on the F because you really have to stretch, okay? So on chords like the F, you can let go of the root note and jump up to the chord. That's fine, but make sure to use your pedal. So I have and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, okay? And a real quick note on pedaling, I go down on the F, and then I go up on the chord so it's short. And 1, and 2, and 3, okay? All right, now I know some of you watching are advanced pianists and you want to play a super cool sounding left hand, so check out what this sounds like and then I'll break it down for you. I love the sound of this left hand because it incorporates not only this technique that we've been discussing, but you also get a really nice jump in there to the chord, which we call the stride technique, okay? So here's what I'm doing. I'm starting on the and of beat 4, so and 1, but on beat 1, I'm actually jumping up to the 3rd and the 7th of the C7 chord, okay? So we have and 1, and then we're gonna grab a big C7 chord like this. Okay, so we have and 1, and 2, and then we play the same thing, and 3, and 4. Okay, so you're going to want to practice this a little bit. And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2. Does that make sense? And then on the F chord, same thing. You're going to go and 1, you see that? And then for the chord, I just like to use a simple F7 like this. Okay, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4. And make sure that all of your chord pops are short or staccato, okay? So do not keep your pedal down when you hit the chord. Let go of the pedal, okay? And 1, and lift, and 3, and lift, and 1. And then you're back to your C7. Okay, and then you're gonna do the same thing on the G7 chord. So we have and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. And so for this chord, it's root up to the 3rd and 7th, and then the chord pop on a simple G7 chord. And 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And then remember, when you switch to a new chord, 3, and 4, and 1, make sure to go to the root note on the and of beat 4 before the chord changes. All right, you've done a fantastic job, and the very last thing I want to do with you is play these left-hand accompaniments over the 12-bar blues so you can see exactly how to switch between the chords. We're going to play with the included backing track, and by the way, this lesson comes with 3 downloadable backing tracks at different tempos. You can also download and print the lesson sheet music you're seeing up here on the top left of your screen. And you can change the key of this entire lesson with the click of one button with our smart sheet music. So I'll put a link to all of that below. And we're first going to play the beginner left-hand accompaniment, then we'll do intermediate and advanced. So here's the beginner accompaniment. 2, and here we go. And to the F, and back to C, okay? Now you can do some improv in the right hand. And back to F. Okay, see how I'm switching early to each of my chords, okay? Keep it super simple, okay? Now we're to the G, here it is. And back to a G7, okay? Sounding great. All right, next we're gonna play with the intermediate left hand, but I wanted to mention, if you wanted to learn some of these right hand licks that I'm using, you can in our Bible of Blues Riffs courses. You'll learn 120 blues riffs. I'll put a link to those below, and here it is with the intermediate left hand. And here we go. Down to the F. All right, next we're gonna play with the advanced left-hand accompaniment, but I also wanted to mention that if you wanna learn how to invent your own blues licks, you can in our 10-lesson blues challenge. This is a course series for beginner to advanced level players where you learn virtually every technique that I use when I'm improvising blues licks. So I'll put a link to those courses below, and here it is with the advanced left-hand accompaniment. Here we go. Hey, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the lesson, please let me know in the comments. Also, be sure to check out pianowithjonny.com. We have over 1,000 step-by-step lessons for all playing levels where you'll learn your favorite songs, styles, and how to improvise at the piano. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.